Matthew Russell with Digital Reasoning.
Yes.
So Matthew, you've been to most of our Strata summits and Stratas.
Yeah.
How do you find this one this year?
It's bigger and better. It's much bigger than the one last year here in Santa Clara. I think we took up a very small portion of the venue, generally speaking. It's sort of bursting at the seams this year. Lots more interesting companies showing up, performing analytics on structured and unstructured data, which is of interest to us. We're primarily an unstructured data analytics company. And so it's an interesting time.
So are you finding the conversations, are the people different this year? Are there more data science type people rather than necessarily programmers or something like that?
I think there are at least more people who would call themselves data scientists. Yeah, I think the terminology and the jargon has sort of had a little bit of time to set in. And so I think last year it was sort of like a big coming out of data science. And since then, it's started to permeate into the fabric of companies and organizations, and they've had time to think about it. And even us, for example, some of our job openings now, it occurred to me recently, we need to have a data scientist job description just because people are thinking in those terms. And it's the new lingua franca of trying to hire into a company that's performing data analytics.
So speaking of hiring into a company, Digital Reasoning, I know what you do. You've written a couple books for O'Reilly. But Digital Reasoning, what do you guys do here?
So in a nutshell, we are trying to automate the understanding of natural language data. So if you have a lot of natural language data, web pages, text messages, transcripts, you name it, we're trying to resolve the entities in that data and then ground them in time and space. So if we have 10 million documents and Mike Hendrickson's mentioned 1,023 times, there's probably not 1,023 unique Mike Hendricksons, and there may not only be one Mike Hendrickson, there may be 12 Mike Hendricksons. And so we want to try to resolve those entities, those mentions of Mike Hendricksons, and then we want to ground you and your relationships to other entities in time and space. That's essentially what life is, right? It's entities interacting in time and space through various relationships.
Excellent. So where do you see this sort of understanding and thinking going in the future?
Well, we are trying to use the most unsupervised learning methods available to understand the data at scale. And so right now we're taking that into the enterprise. There's a lot of organizations that need help with that. Everybody from, our bread and butter has primarily been defense intelligence work, although we're moving into some other government organizations, as well as some obvious business verticals, financial risk services, e-discovery, healthcare. Everybody, we've spent decades building technology to inundate us with data, and now we're at this point of reckoning where we really need to say, okay, time out, we need to level off, we need to understand this, we need to turn it into actionable information and do something with it. So right now, we're sort of in the enterprise. I think a lot of other folks here are as well, but we really want to get to the consumer because that's where I think you really do a service to humanity. When you can talk to Siri on your iPhone and Siri can run on the edge of the network and you don't have to say, okay, we trust you, I'll give you all of my data and I'll just trust you won't have a security breach, you won't do anything bad with it. Right now, that's sort of where we're at with the cloud. We say, okay, cloud provider, we'll give you all of our data, and we'll trust you, and we'll hope that nothing goes wrong. We want to get to the point that we're running our software on the edge of the network on mobile devices, so your data really never has to leave your pocket, per se. All those analytics are performed on the edge of the network. Your privacy is never compromised, or can't be, unless someone would breach your physical device. And at that point, imagine Siri, except that she really understands you because she knows what you're emailing about, what you're texting about, who's texting you back, who's talking to you. And this wasn't in someone's cloud, it's on the edge of that network. So that's where we really want to see this go.
So you can figure out the difference, like say I have Iris instead of Siri because I have an Android, but you guys could figure out all my different devices and Mike Hendrickson is still one person, or how do you guys tease that out?
Well, so we would look at how entities in your information are used in context, and we would try to, within structured data, we would do something similar to what you'd think of as record matching, using known metadata. But in unstructured text, we would look at how symbols are used in context, and we would let that context define the meaning of those symbols. And in an unsupervised learning paradigm, that works really well, and it scales out into the millions, hundreds of millions of documents. And that's essentially what we've done for defense intelligence, and we're trying to take into the enterprise and eventually to the consumer now.
I think this is really exciting. I can't wait to see what you guys do.
Yeah.
Matthew,
Thanks for coming
I hope we
by.
see you next year.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.